Greetings. In this video, we are going to look into the reference of our guardian deities like Muniswaran and Karuppar in the Vedas. A common misconception regarding the worship of guardian deities is the absence from the Vedas, hence their reference as non-Vedic deities. Guardian deities like Muniswaran, Karuppar or Madurai Veeran are indeed Vedic deities. They are the very folk forms of Rudra or Bhairava, the ferocious form of Lord Shiva. For example, if you look at the insignias used in the Karuppar, Muni or Veeran worship, a must is a Trishula. The Trishula is actually the very form of Kala Bhairava. Other important symbols include all that which is relevant to Shiva Tattva, like Vibhuti, the Rudraksha beads, and dreadlocks. Now, by experience itself, one can realize that the very energy of the Munis and Karuppars are that of Rudra. This aspect of Rudra is very much expressed in our Vedas. The Taittiriya Samhita of the Yajurveda describes myriad forms of Rudra in a portion which we commonly refer to as the Sri Rudram. For example, in the 11th chapter, we see a verse which goes as Sahasrani Sahasrasho Ye Rudra Adhibhumyam. So Sahasrani, thousands, Sahasra Shaha, which means upon thousands, Adhibhumyam, on the face of the earth. So this verse actually denotes the thousands and thousands of Rudras who actually walk upon this earth, who cover this entire earth. Of course, the underlying meaning is that of the all-pervasive nature of God, who we refer to as Rudra. Nevertheless, since the Vedas carry truth in various dimensions, this also indicates that there are infinite forms of Rudras who walk upon this earth. Now, the role of Rudra in the Vedas are in tandem to our guardian deities. To quote some common examples, vanquishing negativity, removing fear, conferring protection from enemies, and curing diseases. For example, in the first chapter of the Rudram, we find a verse, Adhyavochadadhivakta prathamo daivyo bhishake. So here Bhishaka means a doctor or physician. Ahigashcha sarvān jambhayant sarvāscha yatu dhanyaha. So yatu dhanyaha is in reference to the spirits and demons, and ahin is in reference to snakes. So here the role of Rudra as a doctor who cures diseases and as someone who protects us or destroys all these negative entities like snakes, which is a representation of poison, and spirits and demons. Now, if you have a look at the temples of our guardian deities, they very much represent the roles described here. For example, across Malaysia itself, there are many temples in which the deity is adorned with a stethoscope, because the deity is very well known for his curing abilities, curing diseases and illnesses. And as obvious as it is, guardian deities are literally the symbol for protection. Now, this is another example of the 9th Anuvaka, where various verses describe the various forms of the Rudras. For example, the Rudras who are present in the forest, in the mountains, in the water bodies, and so forth. Now, here's one verse which can correspond with one of our deities, which goes as Namah kapartine cha pulastaye cha namo goshthyaya cha grhyaya cha. So this is the verse which speaks about the Rudra who has matted locks and who wears them majestically like a crown. So we have a form of Rudra, a form of Muniswaran who is referred to as Jata Muni. Jata because he has the dreadlocks, the Jata. That is why he has his name, and he's a very famous. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking that, these are coincidences. So, you could probably pick any verse and link them to any description that we want. Well, this is just a brief walkthrough to relate the role of Rudra described in the Vedas with our guardian deities. But there's more which I would want to explain here. So you might ask, why don't the Vedas then mention Muniswaran and Karuppar specifically? Now, you cannot expect the Vedas to specifically mention Muniswaran or Karuppar because these terms are colloquial. The term Muniswaran itself is a modern invention. These deities were called Muniyandi, which translates to ruler of the Munis or saints or sages in Tamil. Muni is the short form for Munivar, which means saint in Tamil, or a sage. People coined these names to the deities according to their native language. Recently, the suffix Ishwaran was added to the form of Munishwaran, which means the same thing. For example, the Puranas describe Kala Bhairava as Mahakala, which translates to Periya Karuppu in Tamil. Maha translates to Periya and Kala refers to Karuppar. So Periya Karuppu is actually Mahakala, which is mentioned in the Puranas. Munishwaran is the folk form of Dakshinamurti, because Dakshinamurti is the lord for the 7 sages, the Saptarishis. And Munishwaran literally means the lord of sages in Tamil. Right? So we have various manifestations of the deity. For example, the subtle form of water as vapor cannot be seen with the eyes. If you want to look and feel and touch water, which is in the form of vapor, you would need to condense it in the form of water. So this is seen as dewdrops. So the same substance which is present as vapor can be present as a dewdrop too, which is more physical. A dewdrop is more physical than vapor. So this is the same way how the deities express themselves. The folk deities are the physical manifestation, the manifestation of our gods in the physical plane. So they are physically very intense. This is the stone worship, Nadukkal, which is mentioned during the Tamil Sangam age more than 2500 years ago. Stones are adorned with vibhuti, sandal paste and other auspicious items. Munishwaran wasn't there during this age. They were at most only referred to as Muniyandi or Muniyappan. For example, in colloquial Tamil, Lord Shiva is called Peyandi, meaning ruler of the spirits. So it is logical that we cannot find Peyandi as a word itself in the Vedas. That does not mean that Peyandi is a non-Vedic deity, right? The famous Jalan Baru temple in Malaysia is a deity which houses Madurai Veeran and Muniyandi, and it is consecrated according to the Shaiva Agamas. There may be many forms of Munis and Karuppars. You have over 108 forms of Karuppar, each with their unique form, history and trait. However, importantly, they all carry the same expression of Shiva Tattva. Looking beyond the forms, they are all Rudras. The Yajurveda in the Rudram speaks of the various forms of Rudra who come in a vast spectrum. For example, it speaks about a Rudra who has matted hair, who is clean shaven, who has 1,000 eyes, who is the holder of 100 bows, to the one who dwells in the mountains, to the one who bears arrows, the one who is in the form of a dwarf, and so forth. So hope that clears. Thank you for watching.